welcome to Hearthstone Korea Season 6. Crazily, we're already in the final day of the round of 16. 6 players have cemented their spots, 6 have gone home, and today we see our remaining 4 players. Only 2 of them can join a star-studded lineup, I'd have to say, Do and Horusol, in that round of 8. So exciting times, and also the meta settling, because we started off with some very fast games, very aggressive, aggro, mid-range. It slowed down a bit 2 days ago, and I don't know about you, Do, but I spied with my little eye a Priest list today. So are we going to get even slower?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, Priest is not a class that's been played a lot lately, and I think it's a pretty good chance that we're not going to see it. It's probably going to be self-banned by the player that's bringing it, but one can always hope, right? But I think you're right. I think the meta is slowing down a little bit more. We're seeing a little bit more of the Arc Druid creep in. This slower Shaman list that's been making the rounds in different tournaments is starting to pop up here now, too. So maybe, you know, the age of Zoo is kind of trickling down a little bit more, but I don't know if we can say it's going to be a control meta just yet. I think we're still going to be pretty quick for a little while yet, at least.
And look, we saw that Shaman deck brought just a couple of days ago. It was a slower Shaman. Of course, famously, Frodan over at SeatStory was playing another variant. It feels like everyone's messing around with the Shaman list. What's your impression on this control Shaman that's coming into the meta, Horusol?
We'll get right back to it after we talk about the overview.
All right, you hold that thought. Give you some time to gestate and think about that, guys. We are the final day of the round of 16, single elimination format, best of 5 conquest. We'll be moving into that dual tournament format starting on Sunday. That will be double elimination in 2 groups of 4 as we whittle our way through the tournament. 42 million Korean won, about 38,000 US dollar prize pool. And of course, this is all building towards the final APAC championship of the year, APAC Summer.
Well, yeah, that's a really exciting part, right? Is that the winner of this tournament gets to go to the APAC Summer Championships, and the winner of that goes to BlizzCon automatically. So it's huge to be able to win this tournament. The money's nice, of course, but being able to have a chance to make it to the World Championships later this year, that's pretty awesome.
I mean, so far, the Korean champions at Hearthstone Masters Korea, they did not do so well in the APAC Championship.
Not so much, no.
But the other Koreans, they did really well.
And that's the thing. The region itself seems to be growing, even though it's the Asia Pacific Championships. 2 Korean winners. 3 out of 4 finalists were Korean players as well. So, So far, so good for the Korean region. But let's get back to that brass tacks. Control Shaman. Is it a thing, or is this just one of those meta things that is around for a couple of weeks, then goes away?
I think the biggest reason why we have so many control warrior shaman in the current meta is because there are so many zoos and tempo mage and aggro shaman, and we just need a deck to counter that. Especially given that warrior gets banned a lot of times, especially in Masters Korea. I think people are having an extra option to deal with these aggro decks.
And of course, we have the pick and ban format. It's kind of interesting because when you're picking and banning Shaman, especially the ban for the enemy player, you're thinking of the aggro list. You're considering your list compared to aggro Shaman. Maybe mid-range Shaman, this season seems to have been predominantly that aggro Shaman. And suddenly, there's this thing where you're like, even if you're prepping to face aggro decks, you leave up the Shaman, and you can be surprised by this new archetype that only now people are starting to respect.
Yeah, and one thing that Shaman was lacking earlier in terms of being a more control-type deck was sustain, right?
Sure.
We had a couple of heals here and there, but it wasn't really a lot. Now with Haziel the Ascended in there, you have this big way to stay in the game. It's practically Reno, right?
Especially in combination with the Elemental Destruction. I'm just looking over the results so far. The favorites have qualified. Dawn, Ghost, Dogok, Flurry, Jungnar, and Stealer may not all be household names to the global fans, but these are all players that have experience on the OGN stage. All of them won the fan vote, which has been synonymous with being the more popular player, or perhaps getting more tournament results. And so far, as we've said a couple of times, 6 strong names through to the round of 8.
Yeah, and if the tradition continues, then we are probably going to see Pokerface and Silent Slayer making it through today's matchup.
Will there be an exception? It'd be fun if one of those favorites doesn't get through. Not so fun for them, but at least you'd have that storyline of the only non-fan favorite coming through. We've got Pokerface, the man who made it through the semifinals just last season in Masters Season 5. We've already had a Season 3 and Season 4 semifinalists make it through to the round of 8 today. And then Silent Slayer, the player that really captured our attention back at the APAC Spring qualifiers. Had a big first day, but disappointed on the second day. And is going to want to put that disappointment behind him today.
Yeah, it's cool to see somebody new come through and end up playing really well, but I think there's a long road to go before some of these guys can meet the skill level of some of the other players we have in the tournament.
It's a Fair point. Well, we're going to go to an interview with our first two players, which will be CHUL and Pokerface, in just a second. So just getting ready to load into that so we can find out a little more about some of our qualifiers. I know you went and did the subtitles for this video, so you probably have a good idea of what's going on. But let's share it with the viewers, CHUL and Pokerface.
27살 유저 김철윤입니다.
네, 안녕하세요. 저는 정의구현에 이번에 어렵사리 두 번째로 진출하게 된 고상혁이라고 합니다.
제가 막상 당일에는 기분이 좋은 느낌을 받지 못했는데 그 자고 일어난 다음날 보니까 마지막 경기까지 가서 탈락했으면 얼마나 아쉬웠을까 하는 생각과 너무나도 좋은 기쁨이 몰려왔습니다.
이게 서로 상대방하고 제가 최선의 플레이를 해서 이런 결과가 나왔으면 좀 덜 아쉬웠을 텐데 좀 실수를 많이 하셨더라고요. 저도 조금 했던 것 같고 그래서 그거에 대해서는 조금 아쉬운 부분이 많습니다.
덱을 굉장히 신선하고 새롭게 짰는데 그런 덱과 충분히 상대할 만한 덱을 저도 짤 수 있다고 생각합니다.
저번 시즌까지만 해도 사제가 굉장히 할만하다고 생각을 했는데 이번 시즌에 너무 중요한 카드들이 많이 빠져서 이 사제를 어떻게 지금
Wow. Bit of a contrast there between the confidence of Pokerface looking to send the first-time qualifier home in CHUL, and CHUL just kind of only now really sinking in, perhaps, looking around the big Seoul E Stadium, that playing in front of a big crowd, professional Hearthstone, and they talked about the Prix. They touched on it, and ironically, even though Pokerface was the one that was really talking deeply about Prix, CHUL has brought a Prix list to this tournament.
Maybe that is the class that he was talking about, that he feels confident to go up against anybody with.
I think so, but we'll see if that actually is true or not. I mean, we've seen players say things like that in the past, and
Yeah.
then they just ban it themselves. I'm like, all right, well, I know you're really feeling. It's easy to talk big about how good of a Priest player you are, but then it's another thing to actually bring a Priest deck and use it in a tournament right now. It's not a great meta for this class, but perhaps with things slowing down a little bit, there's room for a Control Priest to come back up again.
When we had the player ratings of deck power, we saw that Priest was the class that was rated the lowest, and it had gone down since Season 5, notably with cards like Light Bomb being removed.
And what is really amazing about this particular player is that he has only been playing Hearthstone for 7 months. And he already made it to top 16 of Africa Battle Royale and top 16 of Masters Korea this season.
Yeah, I mean, some people just have that natural gift, I guess.
Hard to say how much extended CCG experience he has, but seems to have counted for him because he does look like he is one of the players that could make an impact here. Got a very tough ask, though, against Pokerface, first time up. Pokerface looking to go one better, wants to make it to the grand final. He was alluding to the semi-final last season where he lost to Kaiser, who went on to become the runner-up finish. There were some plays there that both players would prefer to forget, so perhaps today can be the start of a new narrative for Pokerface. On the right side, he is part of Team Justice Realization, only member in the round of 16 to make it there this time around.
And that is a fan for Pokerface, and he hopes to see some amazing games with a Pokerface on.
Well, there it is right now. there he is as well. Pokerface with the Pokerface and the Battle Nap. Okay, well, it's important to know how to Battle Nap if you're going to do it.
A lot of runner-up and semi-final finishes in his career, but never taken down the big one. See if Pokerface can go that one better, and to do that, he needs to make it through the next round. So only one of these players can make it through to the round of 8. The other player will go home with nothing. So big stakes here in our first match of the night.
Pokerface is definitely one of the most hyped up players, in my opinion, from the season, because he actually loves to build his own decks and bring something that is completely different from the norm.
Oh, it would be cool to see something different. You know, right now, a lot of the top decks are fairly standardized. You see a lot of the same thing as far as warrior decks, or really any class you look at. So yeah, I mean, I think we're about due for something a bit unique.
And it is a big story that a player qualifies back into a subsequent season, just because we know how big those open qualifiers are. 500 plus players battling through the qualifiers 2 seasons in a row. Something that a player like Palmblatt has done many times, but notable this season, it's only Pokerface as a returning player from Season 5, but we're just getting ready vote into the fan vote, which so far, once again, the results have gone with the fans. So the player that the fans have liked has gone on to win the match, and we'll see if that narrative continues today.
Yeah, well, okay. I mean, CHUL, of course, a newcomer. Again, he only hit Legend for the first time 5 months ago, so not only is he a new player to the pro scene, he's a new player to the game in general. So I don't think anyone should be too shocked about that fan vote.
Yeah, I mean, CHUL was definitely there for the Africa Battle Royale, but he got eliminated right after the first round, so he didn't have much to impress the fans and the crowd yet.
And at the end of the day, not on a professional team, very new to the scene, so understandable that people go with the player they know, especially a player like Pokerface that, once again, has been on screen before. But then look at the banned classes.
Oh, the Priest and Paladin self-banned from each of the players.
So Shaman and Warrior banned, but yes, the Priest that was brought by CHUL will be dropped. We will not be seeing that today. Paladin dropped by Pokerface. Wonder if that was one of the N'Zoth Paladins, but end result, Hunter, Mage, and Warrior versus Druid, Shaman, and Rogue for our first match of the night.
Yeah, so we will end up seeing a Hunter tonight, probably, and so that's going to be a little bit interesting as mid-range Hunter. And the class in general has kind of fallen off a bit lately.
And Rogue, we saw a bit more Rogue just 2 days ago, but that Rogue did not pick up a single victory, so it continues to struggle here on the stage. Hearthstone Musk's career has not been a happy hunting ground for Rogue players, so interesting to see what type of Rogue that is. Probably going to be Miracle, but always the outside chance. Pokerface trumpeted for his deck building. We'll see if he has something crazy to show us. The Shaman 2 days ago was interesting. I'm waiting for a new type of Rogue, but guys, tell your friends we're live on OGN Global and Play Hearthstone. First match of the night, only 2 matches left in the round of 16. CHUL, the newcomer, versus Pokerface, semi-finalist last season. Let's get into our first match. First game will be CHUL piloting the Mage versus the Shaman from Pokerface. It's been clear what type of Shaman this is, but looks like mid-range.
All right, looks like could definitely be a Freeze Mage with that Ice Block from CHUL there. And that would explain the Warrior ban.
Yeah, and this is the second time that we are seeing Freeze Mage in Masters Korea.
What do you think about Freeze Mage? I'm still not sold on this being super great right now, you know?
Not at all.
Yeah, it's certainly still a deck that's capable of winning decks, or winning games rather, but just not a huge fan. A little bit of a slow start for Pokerface here, though.
The tech choice perhaps will be revealed. We saw a Malagos Freeze Mage a couple of days ago, and with the favorite card of Malagos, maybe this will be Malagos Freeze Mage from CHUL as well.
Well, instant Doomsayer from CHUL, and that's going to cause some problems for Pokerface.
Yeah, and without the Urk Shot, he has to give in his board.
Yep.
Has to turn.
Yeah, that least favorite card, Cthulhu. What's wrong with you, CHUL? Cthulhu is great. All right, I'm officially rooting against CHUL now.
Just looking at his list, we saw the Thunderbluff Valiant in the Mulligan's. Going to be more of a mid-range Shaman, some more board-centric, less direct damage. So there is definitely a world where CHUL can be able to stabilize and win with the Freeze Mage. Much more difficult against the more aggro Shaman lists.
Yeah, this should be a pretty good matchup for CHUL, especially because Pokerface probably does not run any of the healing cards in his deck either.
Does not.
Just looking at that deck now, he is running Alec here, so
He
pretty
has a
heavy top
Flame
end.
Faceless and 2 copies of that.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen lists like this in the past where it is, you could say maybe a little bit more of a hybrid list than a straight-up mid-range, but it's interesting.
It does have an Argent Horse Rider, which is a bit more flexible of a card.
Yeah, only 1 Fire Elemental, too. All right.
I think it's actually better to Hero Power here, unless he gets a 1/1 Totem. That's the only bad outcome.
I think you're right. I think I'd Hero Power here. Yeah. A little bit more efficient. You get a minion. There you go. Taunt Totem, not bad at all.
Yeah, and always going to get that discount from Thief from below eventually.
Yep.
Running a lot of 6 drops, so that's why he's only running the single Fire Elemental, because he has the 5s and 6s, so getting the cost down is important, but that's definitely not what Pokerface was looking for.
Yeah, and CHUL has a lot of damage in hand already. Please save the Priest.
Well, don't worry. The Priest is safe because it's not going to be used.
Exactly. He's saved for another day.
Yeah.
Sorry, Anduin.
Feral Spirits there. All right. And yep, just crossing over. CHUL just doing what you can with that Freeze Mage to delay.
You just look at the direct damage. Harissa was just mentioning it a moment ago, but already got double Frostbolt, an Ice Lance, and a Fireball. So we're starting to build towards some pretty significant face damage. We saw a couple of days ago that 21 health was not a safe life total against Freeze Mage, especially if it's a Malagos variant. Slams down Emperor Thorison, and some nice discounts coming through specifically on that burn damage.
Yeah, that's really big.
Yeah, Mirror Image, a recent addition to Freeze Mage that a lot of people have been adapting. They usually take out a copy of Ice Barrier or not even run any copy of Ice Barrier with Mirror Image.
Yep. Yeah, with all the aggressive and fairly aggressive mid-range decks too, having those 2 taunts is oftentimes a little bit more valuable than just simply having the 8 armor.
Not often that a Freeze Mage will play a minion that needs to be hexed, but certainly this turn, the curve from Pokerface with 5 mana, given that he had 1 Overload, was disrupted, wasn't able to play the Azadrake, had to hex away Emperor Thorison. So once again, not much pressure being applied by Pokerface just yet.
Looking for that AoE, but he doesn't really have any, so he's just going to have to use the Ice Barrier and maybe the Mirror Images just to hold off a little bit of damage.
Yeah, I mean, he does have a second copy of Frost Nova in hand. I think CHUL is in a pretty good position already.
I guess he's gotten the edge case of being worried about something like Bloodlust that hasn't been as common in mid-range Shaman, but still, there is that single copy out there in some lists.
Yep.
May just Mirror Image to buy him 4 armor, effectively.
So Pokerface knows that there is no Flame Strike at CHUL's hand yet.
Most likely would have used it. Too much value not to.
Yeah, CHUL getting fairly close to lethal damage already here in this hand with the Malagos. Would be lethal with Thalmos, but hard to play all that at once, obviously.
The only issue I have with playing the Sergeant Horse Rider, yes, it does play around the Flame Strike a little bit, but you have a full board and not going to have any space to play an additional minion if this board gets frozen.
Yeah.
We know that there is that second board freeze. I guess perhaps Pokerface was thinking that a board freeze wasn't played last turn, so there was a chance there were none in hand, but we know there is one. He's actually considering launching damage to face, so it will be 7. Can put out more than that. So far 11. Can also Ice Lance, which would be 16.
Okay. So the reason we're doing this is because with the Malagos still being 9 mana, he's just using everything that he can't fit into 1 Malagos turn.
Wow, and Pokerface is Ashram hacks that Bullish Mace Thalamus because he doesn't want to give that extra draw, and he doesn't want to take the extra spell damage either.
Drawing the Alex Strauss right after he does all that damage.
So if he Alex Strauss, will be down to 15. We know that from hand he has access to 8 plus 9, so that's 17 damage. So next turn he has lethal.
Yep.
You know, if Alec here comes out here, what's the damage? It's Alec here plus Rock Bite, that's another 12.
Yep, so he has 12 from there, 14, 16, 19.
It's nearly lethal, but not quite all the way.
Yeah, he was actually just one
damage
lethal.
short.
Wow.
Insane.
Yeah, really close. But with that Malagos, looks like that should be enough.
Freeze Mage, because of perhaps the slower start the Pokerface had, remember, had to hero power on turn 3. That 1 damage, if he could have found it 1 damage earlier, would have made the difference, and game 1 goes to CHUL.
Yeah, remember that one time when Pokerface was trading with his Feral Spirit and did not put that 2 extra damage to CHUL's face, and that really cost him the game in this course.
Sort of thing that when you watch back the tape, you'll realize that just something that seemed so trivial at the time actually became so significant. The extra burst with the Alakir Rockbiter brought him a lot closer than we thought. We thought it would just be easy 2-turn lethal for CHUL, but CHUL does end up picking the win. Still will have the mid-range Hunter and one of those Warrior decks remaining. Pokerface will have to find a win with his mid-range Shaman at some point.
That's a good deck, so I would say he's got a good chance of picking that up. Looks like it's going to be Hunter next for CHUL now.
Mid-range on both sides, mid-range Hunter versus the mid-range Shaman.
Yeah, interesting. Let's see how this Hunter deck performs.
The tech choices in mid-range Hunter are always interesting. There was a time when, as you can see on your screen, we see some of them. Tundra Rhino in this list. Some lists run 1 deadly shot. If it's a very slow meta, you might see 2 deadly shots, but perhaps with the meta speeding up in recent games, we're going to see less of that. And wow, a Dread Scale in the list as well.
That is an interesting tech choice to have.
You know, there's been, I suppose, a lot of Zoo Warlock out there, a lot of stuff that has that 1 health minion, so yeah, I could say you can make an argument for Dread Scale, but it is an interesting addition, that's for sure. Oh wow, the huge Toad wins with the 2 versus 1.
That doesn't happen very often.
No.
Interesting that the win rate for Tunnel Truck turn 1 is only 47%. You'd think it'd be a number around 55, but...
I mean, I think it's also because they're facing the Shaman Mirror a lot.
It's a wildly out of context as well, but
Yeah.
given how strong a snowball minion that is and has been respected to be, I'm surprised to see it below 50%.
Well, I mean, if that stat comes from a lot of games versus Warrior when they have Fiery War Axe, that can skew things a bit, so it's hard to kind of make stats like that work.
It's going to be a hero power turn on turn 4 for Pokerface.
Yeah, and this is a very heavy punishment on Pokerface because he didn't kill that beast.
Yeah, you really got to prioritize killing the beast, especially when you're playing a Shaman deck that's designed to be a little bit slower.
Has to be noted, though, that CHUL is already down to 17 health on turn 4, so the face damage has certainly been observed, and there will be 4 damage persisting this turn.
All right, some decisions to be made.
Matchup will play out a little bit differently than if it was the aggro Shaman, because then you'd be looking for your spells for direct damage, whatever CHUL was to play. We know that this is a much more board-centric list from Pokerface, so kind of in that awkward spot where can he just play as a Drake? Does he need to look for trades with the Argent Horse Rider, which are very risky when you're talking about Huge Toad?
As a Drake, I'm not so sure about. It just doesn't seem to give it the best board afterwards.
I think Tuskar Totemic is a pretty safe way to go here. May decide to go for the Argent Horse Rider, though, because he did the hero power first.
Yeah, but the thing is, the Argent Horse Rider can die from the Death Rattle coming from Huge Todd.
Is there a world where you just send the Argent Horse Rider and the 1/1 totem into the 4/3 and go face with the Tunnel Truck? Because as you say, if you trade into a Huge Toad, there's a good chance that you get punished. We'll see if we can find out the answer now. Looks like he wants to trade into a Huge Toad. Yep, sends the 1/1 totem first. He will be trading with the Toad.
Wow.
That's exactly what he was looking for, with the Toad going to face, and so it keeps the board alive.
Oh, that unleashed the Hounds, though.
Yeah, that's a scary thing, and I mean, that's a major reasoning for not playing that Tuskar Totemic, but It's going to be a pretty punishing unleash either way.
Look at that. It's into one. We'll be able to keep a nice board size and definitely some beasts on board as well.
Nice order from CHUL. He's very calm and making the right moves.
Yeah.
Suddenly, our unfancied qualifier is looking like he's in a strong spot in Game 2 after taking down Game 1. So perhaps the first surprise of the season will come through in terms of an underdog actually pushing through. Still early, still the chance that Pokerface can take this, but only playing a single minion. Doesn't have the direct damage in this list unless he finds the Doomhammer.
Yeah, Pokerface does run 2 copies of Lightning Storm in his deck, but nowhere to be found just yet.
Lightning Storm could really turn this game around, though, obviously.
Yeah.
So we'll see. The deadly shot, though, really useful for CHUL.
Now, he can only play Dreadscale with it, which he does not want to do.
Probably not the
that
right
would be that'd be
video
real
to
bad.
play.
So
I think it's 0 power here. You're happy with the 2 damage.
that is the opportunity cost of playing the 3-mana spell. But given his options, I think that was the strongest line. So finally starts to equalize the health totals. Pokerface down to 15.
That's not too helpful without anything on the board already.
Last couple of draws have been rough.
It's not going to get him Lightning Storm. Even if he gets it, he doesn't have enough mana to use that anymore.
Yeah.
The draws have been rough. As a Drake, the Rock Biter, now the Totem. None of those going to help them right now.
Do you go for Tusker Totemic and try to top deck the Lightning Storm with Azure Drake next turn?
What totem are you looking for from the Tusker? Taunt, and then maybe rolling another taunt?
Yeah, and put that Flame Totem in between those two, right?
I guess that'd be lovely. You'd need at least one taunt totem from those two. Not quite lethal in the hand yet for CHUL, though. Turn 8, it's probably going to be looming as the big turn for him. Healing totem to begin things.
And okay, spell damage
That is
totem.
rough.
Neither of those really accomplishing too much. So right now, there is 6 damage on the board. We need to find 9, which he will not be able to do, given what he has.
Yeah, I like this. Make your opponent really choose. But obviously, if he's got enough damage, he's going to kill you anyway.
He does not. At least not
yet.
so far.
So he may have to trade at least with that Flame Tongue totem.
Next turn, he will have access to what the Koreans affectionately called the Beast Avengers, Call of the Wild, which may be enough to iron out the game, but it will be trades so far this turn.
Oh, wow. He is actually going to play his Red Skill here
Huh, okay.
instead of the Tundra Rhino.
Interesting. Now, it has the 4-2 stat line that, again, sets him up for lethal next turn, and he clears the board.
Yeah,
like
look at
it.
that little green from CHUL after he plays a Dread Skill. He's like, yeah, this is the card I wanted to put in.
This was my masterful card, my tech choice.
Oh, the Lightning Storm, though, gets drawn by CHUL.
But,
You probably need to use it.
yeah, the mini Wolf Death Rattle minions, they are going to spawn.
Sure, the spiders are annoying to deal with.
So
but,
next turn, it will be 9 damage with Call of the Wild and the 2 spiders, because they will be buffed up. It's not enough to take down Pokerface, but certainly just a
Close
hair's
enough.
breadth away from doing so. Has quick shot and hero power the next turn to end the game. So, I don't know. I think that CHUL is going to be going through to Game 2 and potentially, one step away from making it through to the round of 8.
Maybe. I still think you have to Lightning Storm here.
Yeah.
Doesn't feel good, but you got to do it.
And this almost certainly will be a Call of the Wild turn.
Do we have lethal? No. we
No,
don't.
it's, as I said,
Not yet.
only the 9 damage, but can trade this turn, and next turn he has 6 damage from hand and hero power, so that's 8 damage already. Just needs 1 damage to stick on the board. And, well, Pokerface got nothing doing.
At least he got a taunt.
Yeah, and if he wants to, he can Hex this bear as well.
Really reduced the damage, so he will also...
And it's still
Turn
going to be
Misha
a
into a
1-1 frog instead of a 0-1.
So buffed up right now.
The issue is now there's still the bow, there's still the quick shot.
It's still lethal.
Well, yeah, there you go. Now it's Stampeding Kodo as well.
So from hand, he has
the taunt.
8 damage, and the frog represents 1, so he has 9 damage to face after the taunt.
Yeah, if he uses Tundra
Yep.
and...
He doesn't need to do that either. So it's
Yeah,
just
this is
quick
fine,
shot,
too.
bow, weapon. Easy peasy. And CHUL, surprisingly, may be that first underdog to make it through to the round of 8 because he has Pokerface on the ropes. 2 games, 2 victories for CHUL.
Could be. And with a Warrior, the last class that CHUL has to get a win with here, it is looking pretty good.
Solid plays from CHUL in both games. Was 1 damage off lethal in game 1 was Pokerface, but CHUL finally took it with the freeze mage. Now the mid-range hunter. Only question we have is which warrior, but given just the infestation of warriors on the ladder right now, the power of that class is very well known. So many flexible choices. Will it be the Dragon Warrior? Will it be the mid-range warrior that's been very popular so far this tournament? We've even seen a Cthulhu warrior, so the only question really to me is which warrior is left, and Pokerface needs to pick himself up or maybe out of this tournament much faster than he would have expected.
Yeah, it would be a little bit of a surprise, but again, you never know when somebody's going to come up, and I think CHUL has shown himself both in the qualifiers and in the first couple of games today to be a pretty solid player.
Yeah, and I guess Pokerface is just gonna hope and cross his fingers that CHUL brought a control warrior and go again with his mid-range shaman.
Yeah, mid-range shaman always been very, very fancied against control warrior, but this is going to be the dragon mid-range warrior from CHUL.
And he has almost perfect hand so far.
Could use another dragon so that he'd have a playable card on turn 2. But with the hero power choice, feels like Warlock has definitely been the priority one recently, but Hunter will be decent.
Yeah, Hunter's traditionally kind of been the best one to grab for this deck, but the Warlock one has been pretty helpful as well. So it's Tunnel Trog time.
So Fiery War Axe is going to shut Pokerface down.
Oh, it doesn't draw it though.
Not yet.
He does use his only dragon as well to build the board. Passing the turn, which would have been a trade and execute, didn't look particularly attractive. Yep. He's going to set up a 2-for-1 as Pokerface.
Not bad. Blood to Icar, I suppose. Kill it if he doesn't want to run Finley in.
I think it's actually better to use a blood to Icar to Tunnel Trog and
just trade anyway
with Finley.
And then you have a 2-2 to face the, at the moment, 1-2 from the Tunnel Trog.
I mean, CHUL could even use Execute if he's really scared about this Tunnel Trog.
I think he's seen 2 games of this list. He's got a feel that this is a very mid-range, or perhaps even, he knows there's Alakir in the list because that's already been played.
Yeah.
So the value of Execute, I think, is really high for CHUL. But he's considering just playing around his current board state. You could see holding on to that Execute.
Yeah, CHUL is definitely really scared about the Feral Spirit coming down, and he really wants to play the Korkan Elite and kill off at least one body of Feral Spirit if it does come down. So he's debating whether he should use Execute or not.
He's going for it.
Again, with that information that this is a list with Alakir, we know that CHUL is aware of the sacrifice he's making using that Execute for tempo early.
So Argent Horse Rider or Tuskar Totemic here?
Argent Horse Rider, I guess.
Counts on both sides, but he wants to see what he gets out of the Totemic.
Unless he gets, yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's probably the worst.
Go to face here, yeah. Let yourself heal up. I think the 1-1 would have still been the worst, but...
Yeah, that's fair.
Time for Korkan Elite to come out.
Yep. Won't be able to clear the board, but certainly getting very close. Only just going to be the healing totem alive.
Okay, so there's the Feral Spirits now, so maybe, just maybe, every face could make a bit of a comeback here.
Every time I see one of these cards come into Pokerface's hand, I just remark on how clunky he's been. Now, he's been unfortunate to draw some of his heavier drops early, but you just think about how tight a list Aggro Shaman is, some of the older mid-range Shaman lists. Pokerface has had nothing doing in his hand multiple games in a row.
Yeah, it's definitely been a tough series of draws for the guy today.
Well, at least CHUL does not have any dragon in his deck, in his hand yet, so he doesn't have any activator for the Blackwing Corruptor.
Wow, that's pretty good. Still the exact minion he needs, and all the pressure onto Pokerface right now. Azure Drake, pretty decent draw. Wow, he's going to go instead for the Thunderbuff Valiant.
Yeah, 1 Execute down, so why not do... Wow!
Oh, just when you needed a dragon, 1 comes to the hand of CHUL, and this is one of these sinking feelings that Pokerface is probably feeling. Sometimes it's not your day, and we're getting closer and closer to CHUL potentially taking a 3-0 win and going against a 90 to 10% fan vote and picking up the victory.
Yeah, it really depends on what CHUL can get from the Malcro.
Yeah, and I gotta say, I like the deck set CHUL brought. I like the way he's been playing them. And if it is a 3-0, it's certainly not because just because Poker drew badly. CHUL's been making the right decisions too.
So this turn, many different lines of play were open.
All right, well, he draws into something he can play at least.
Does contest the board here with the Azure Drake.
Yeah,
What will the Malkarok bring?
I like the Malkarok a lot because even if you don't draw into a 4-attack weapon, you know you'll probably get something you can trade with, and he does. So that's another huge advantage.
Yeah, Railing Blade is good enough.
I also remembered the name of that weapon. I was going to say Rallying Blade, but yeah, it's a good spot. He was able to trade nicely.
Well, if you're playing Paladin right now, you're probably playing one in your deck, so seeing a bit more use now.
Probably we're going to see Hex and Thing from Below coming down from Pokerface.
That seems like the likely line. Unfortunately, the Thing from Below is faced by both minions, so Hex doesn't set up a 2-for-1 trade.
It does set up a trade in general, though, to pave the way for Alakir to come through a little bit safely, or another Thunderbluff Valiant. So it still seems like a pretty decent idea.
If he was to commit to using any Overload this turn, wouldn't be able to play that Alakir next turn. So Feral Spirit's probably not going to be this turn.
Yeah, I think Pokerface is just really afraid that one of those 8 drops are going to come down from like Ragnaros or Grimish Hellscream.
We saw Ragnaros in the Mulligans, so it is in the deck.
You have to deal with the situation that's in front of you, though, when you're in kind of dire straits like this. So I think the Hex into the Thing from Below is the proper play, and it does trade with this Blackwing Trumpeter, so at least you do have that.
So we'll hold on to the Azure Drake this turn, potentially, or could just play it second. Doesn't have another dragon in hand, only has the Taunt that also acts the dragon. There is that 8-drop.
That's pretty good. Okay, Lightning Storm not terribly helpful here.
I guess CHUL was trying to play around Alakir a little bit by playing Azure Drake over the Twilight Guardian.
Could be.
Here's Alakir, only able to get 1 minion down, doesn't have the attack to take down the Azure Drake, so probably going to launch the damage into face. Does have a AoE next turn if he wants it in Lightning Storm, so I guess he's considering weakening the Azure Drake.
Yeah, but you're also so afraid about cards like Blood to Ichor.
Yeah, I think you still go to face here. Okay, he will. I mean, you have to, at some point in this game, you have to get damage done if you're Pokerface. You're out of time, You're kind of all in, committed here. It's not looking too good. The draw for CHUL goes right into that Frothing Berserker, and he's able to follow that up with the Twilight Guardian, so he is just completely coming up aces here.
And even though it doesn't get the Taunt or the 3/6 stat line, it's applying pressure, and he has Ragnaros and the Hunter Hero Power next turn for reach, so he's in a really nice spot. Action is over to Pokerface.
If Pokerface can roll a Spell Power Totem, there's a chance that he can kill everything on the board.
I think that's kind of what he has to go for, but he's thinking about playing that Thunderbluff Valiant.
If he was to play the Thunderbluff Valiant, would not be able to Hero Power and play the Lightning Storm. That is a 10-mana combo.
It's probably not a good idea to leave that Berserker on the board.
Interestingly, he does want to play the Thunderbluff Valiant this turn, so doesn't go for Spell Power. I guess he's happy enough to leave up the Twilight Guardian. He's at 20 health, so certainly not worried about lethal just yet, but I have to think it's going to be one of those Ragnaros 50-50s for CHUL.
Yeah, going for the Hero Power along with the Ragnaros, of course, so we'll see if it does take out the Thunderbluff Valiant.
That would probably be what he wants to see. Doesn't get it, though. It's going to go to face.
Yeah, face is fine, too.
Yeah.
Pokerface only has 8 HP left.
Now, he can really build up his board size, though, so that's at least happy times. Increases the variance for Ragnaros when it comes to hitting face, which obviously would be the worst, but Thunderbluff Valiant as well.
It's a big turn for Pokerface, honestly. Does make it much more difficult for Ragnaros to finish him off.
But there's so many clocks on this guy. Deathwing!
Oh, whoa, okay. Well, Deathwing's in there. And Hex, nope. Okay.
Get a Taunt Totem, maybe?
If we saw the second Hex.
He did get a Taunt Totem.
He did.
That Taunt Totem is doing such a job.
All right.
Keeping a 12-12 at bay for now.
He's got a chance to draw the Hex here again. I believe there is 2 Hexes in Pokerface's deck.
I think he has
Should
one
be.
left right now.
Yeah. Well, he's only played 1 the game.
Yeah.
I just wasn't totally sure if he had 2 in his deck, but I'd imagine he does.
Oh,
Does not draw it, though.
Another Taunt Totem?
Another Taunt Totem?
Let's do
Gotta
this.
roll. Well, even if he rolls another Taunt Totem.
Not to be.
He doesn't. That is that, and CHUL takes it 3-0.
The first time that one of the Toman favorites, and actually the most dominant favorite, 90 to 10% was the fan vote, but fan votes in previous seasons did not turn into success. It has so far this season, but wow, CHUL, again, a player that started just months ago in December of 2015 playing Hearthstone. He's got a lot to smile about. He's made it to the double elimination stage, and he will play the winner of our next match, Silent Slayer versus Young, in that stage, just to open things up.
Yeah, CHUL is also the second person to have a 3-0 victory at the round of 16 in this season.
And look, we've certainly seen some of these newer players come through, and some days it's been luck, some days it's been other factors. I think the play from CHUL was very solid on the day. And he has a lot to feel good about. He's definitely looking like a player that could actually move further than maybe even the round of 8.
Well, I'm curious to see what he's going to look like in the round of 8 as far as what decks he brings, because his lists weren't the standard that we've been seeing lately, too. So he's willing to kind of break out of the usual and use stuff that people haven't been using. So, yeah, an exciting player to see go through, but heartbreaker for Pokerface.
Yeah, and maybe we're going to see more Priests coming out from CHUL. I don't know if he's still going to keep it or self-ban it, but maybe he will come back with more Priests.
Look, I mean, it's baby steps with Priest. Again, ranked as the worst deck in this particular tournament by the pros. Baby steps. He brought it. So we actually had a Priest in our group of 5. He might have dropped it, but again, we're one step away from a Priest actually being played in this tournament.
Sure. You never know.
Glass half full, though. Come on.
Well, I'm not being negative on it. I'm just like saying, I don't know, being realistic. It's probably not going to be a Priest game anytime soon.
Yeah, I mean, there's not much merit for the players to actually bring Priest and play it, especially with that light bomb gun, as we have talked about in the interview.
Yeah.
They talked about it. Still, he brought one, so again, close, but no cigar. But Pokerface, he stuck with the Shaman. Again, it's Conquest format, so he needed a victory with all 3 decks, but the Shaman didn't get it going. The Freeze Mage play. Whenever I see a new player play Freeze Mage and play it pretty well, that actually gives me some confidence about them because, again, the ordering, you usually need a lot of experience with that deck to get good results. So that was at least good to see. And now we wonder about the extended roster. Some of the other decks we'll see in future weeks from CHUL.
Well, how about the way Pokerface was playing against Freeze Mage? That is also a little bit of issue that I had. When he traded that 2/3 into a 1/1 minion that CHUL had on the board, I mean, I understand that he was trying to play around Flame Strike a little bit and he was trying to get the value from the healing totem, but that 2 damage was what cost him the game and maybe the whole match.
Well, I mean, in a situation like that, too, you kind of do need to realize at some point Freeze Mage is going to be able to do what the deck is designed to do and lock you out. So you have to get the damage in while you can.
And we can even go further back, though. We were surprised to see a Freeze Mage among the decks. Been a lot more Yogg Tempo Mage. And for it to actually find a good matchup, especially against a very slow mid-range Shaman, was probably a surprise. So if the Shaman had come, it was an aggro Shaman, we would have been talking about, don't know about Freeze Mage in this meta, but it really worked out for CHUL in this game. So that was at least my observation, was that it's nice when you're really fortunate about some of the classes, especially a class like Freeze Mage that can have those hard counters. We saw Cthulhu Warrior versus Freeze Mage just 2 days ago.
Sure, yeah, and you know, Freeze Mage again. I'm still not convinced that it's going to be the best list to bring right now, but you know, it worked today for CHUL, so you can't really argue with it too much.
I mean, I agree with you, but I also think there's a source of mind game that goes around because most players, they do ban away the warrior. So even if you have mage in your deck list and you ban away warrior, you're not really giving out that information that, hey, this is Freeze Mage anymore. It actually still could be Tempo Mage, and usually it is Tempo Mage.
Well, we're just waiting for the Korean casters to wrap up. We will have another series after the break. It will once again be another extended break around 15 minutes. When we come back, Silent Slayer, Apex Spring semi-finalists in the qualifiers. Didn't make it to the tournament, sadly. But a player that we were very impressed with his skill level will be playing against Young, another one of these unheralded players. Coming back to this series for just a moment, though, one thing I'll say about CHUL, compared to other qualifiers, he actually looked really comfortable in the booth, you know, watching him on the cam. He was not awed by the attention he was getting. And again, with all the success recently, Season 5, Season 6, of these seasoned veterans that have played in front of big crowds, it's nice to see a first-time qualifier not awed by the situation, and his play in general was very clean.
Yeah, he didn't look nervous at all, which is something he's going to definitely need to bring into the round of 8 if he wants to have a chance to go through, because it takes more best of 5s, obviously, to win then. And looking forward to our next match too. Silent Slayer looked so flawless in his first day of the APAC Summer Qualifiers that we all thought he was going to go through for sure. Didn't end up going through, and the second day he looked so nervous. He looked so off his game. We saw like 2 different players in 2 days, so I really wonder which one we're going to see today. He's had time to sort of regroup, I guess, but again, he has a very high ceiling, I guess you could say, but he also apparently has a very low floor. So I wonder, where he's going to fall on that in his match.
Well, we are going to go to a break, guys. As I said, give us 15 minutes, and when we come back, it will be Silent Slayer, the player that we had so much to talk about, battling out against Young in our final match of the round of 16s. Join us there.